Haven't you ever wanted to get superpowers? Well, now you can! Maybe. Let's find out what happens when a young girl tries to get superpowers. Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read them dramatically back to you. All alterations of the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Today is the amazing book by Aftershock. I mentioned this one a few times on our weekly podcast, The Weekly Poll, which you can find on our Twitch channel, so now it's time to tell you guys how amazing it is. In Tampa, Florida, there is a young girl named Drew Dragowski. Drew is like any other girl, but she happened to know something that other people didn't. She knew that the world is about to end. Drew believes in many things, like how there are actual superheroes and how the Earth is on its 6th life cycle heading into the current cycle's end. Normally, the world sends out these signals that no one can really see, but she can. After seeing a homeless man, she has an idea. Seeing his sign, will work for money or food, Drew picks the man up and gets him some food and explains her theories to him about the world. So the two of them walk down the street. She tells him to hang on for a minute. She needs to get some things from the nearby store. Once she returns, she gives the homeless man some things like mouthwash and nail clippers and tells him the reason she needed his help is she needs him to mug her parents. Then she heads off for one more day at school. After her day at school and being yelled at by the principal for falling asleep in class, her friend Tana comes over so she can explain her plan. She says that she was thinking about how all of these superheroes seem to have one thing in common. They all have troubled home lives. So what she has to do is create a traumatic event, like the one that happened to Batman. Then it'll empower her to fight crime. Once her parents are mugged at gunpoint, there will be so much tension and turmoil, she can take advantage of it. Tana says that she's not sure that that's how it's supposed to work, and Drew says, I don't either, but it's worth a shot before zapping insects with radiation. Later Saturday night, the homeless man from before sees Drew's parents and tells them that he's here to mug them. He explains that their daughter hired him to do it. Then he explains that her overactive imagination is what got the best of her. Something about recreating a superhero's origin and becoming a superhero herself. They asked why he didn't just take the money and run, and the homeless man says, I like her. I figured her parents might like to know what she's doing before she makes a bad life choice. Drew's father asks if he's a war vet because that's a heavy weight on him that normally comes from a traumatic event like Iraq 2004. And the man says, exactly, but how? Drew's father says that he can sense these things. Elsewhere, Drew begins to wake up from another one of her superhero dreams, and she hears Tana's father shouting at her to get him another beer. Drew pokes her head up and sees Tana's father grab her by the arm, telling her he's sorry how he's been lately. Tana shrugs it off, telling him it's fine, she's gonna go finish her homework and head to bed. Looking back down at the time, Drew sees that it's almost midnight and rushes home. But as she sneaks into the back of her house, she sees the homeless man sitting there and her mother telling her, there you are. You want some late night pancakes? The next day at school, Drew finds herself at the receiving end of a beating by 3 girls. But before you start to feel bad for her, she kinda did initiate the fight. But let's look at how things got to this. The prior night, she came home to find the homeless man with her parents, and Drew tells him they had a contract. The man says not really. She asked him to do something, and he took it upon himself to help her in a different way. He may be a homeless man, but he's not a criminal. Drew's mother says Wax is a veteran and a good man. Coming to them was a good deed, and they decided to return the favor by inviting him into their home. Her father says that perhaps she can get him some camping gear and an air mattress and set them up for Wax in the backyard. Once everything is set up, Drew heads back to give Wax a change of clothes, and he asks if she can forgive him for ratting her out. She tells him he did what he thought was right, and now she'll just have to move on to plan B. So she asks him how long does he plan on staying here. Wax says he's got clean clothing, he's being well fed, and a canvas roof, so whatever happens tomorrow will happen. But tonight, he can just sleep a little easier and dream about a time when he was someone else. Drew heads back in stating that's all she dreams about. Just in her case, she's trying to become someone else. The next day, Tana comes over, and Drew explains that she has to move on to plan B, so she's gonna need her help. She's gonna need her to get 2 spiders for her after she gets her own ass kicked. All she needs is for a radioactive spider to bite her, and all Tana has to do is get the spider and she'll take care of the rest. So back to the current day where she's getting her butt kicked, Drew gets carried off by the ambulance, and Tana runs up telling her she's sorry but she couldn't get any spiders, but she did get some honey and a bunch of ants. Maybe they'll give her shrinking powers, or maybe she can lift 100 times her own weight. Drew slides the bag under her shirt and says, ants? Seriously? Once Drew gets to the doctors, they tell her that it's time for her to get an x-ray to make sure that there's no ribs or anything broken. She sits up to get the scan, but as she does, she pulls out the bag of ants from her bag, and when she does, she accidentally snags the corner of the bag, tearing it. Seconds later, the ants begin to cover her body and they begin biting. She begins to scream, holy crap! And she runs out of the room, running down the hallway screaming, ow, 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 until she runs and slips on a wheelchair, hitting her head on the side of a desk and knocking herself out. She finally wakes up from her superhero dream, and her mother asks how she's feeling. She says itchy, headachy, and kinda confused. Her mother says that the doctors are gonna keep her overnight, but she will stay with her until she's ready to go. The next day, Drew comes home and Tana runs over telling her that she's sorry. She thought ants would be okay, and she asks if Drew got any side effects or powers yet. Drew tells her she's getting headaches and diarrhea currently, but no long-term effects, so she has no idea. Captain America and Painkiller Jane got their powers from special chemical mixtures, so maybe it's time to move on to something supernatural. Tana asks her, like Dracula or the Mummy? And Drew says that she's talking about making a deal with the devil to get powers, like Ghost Rider or Jason Blood or even Spawn. Before long, there's a knock at Drew's door and her father comes in telling Tana that her father called and it's time to head home. Drew and Tana say their goodbyes, but as Drew looks out the window out back, she sees a clean-shaven Wax motioning for her to come out. As she comes out, Drew asks what happened to his face, and Wax says that he could ask her the same thing because she's covered in bug bites, and that he's sorry that she got beat up. But it won't ever happen again because he's going to help her. He opens up his tent and Drew sees all kinds of weapons laid out, and Wax tells her that he's gonna teach her how to defend herself. The next night, Drew, Tana, and Kevin all go out to the comic book store to pick up some research material on martial arts and the supernatural. On the ride back, Tana and Kevin ask how she got that new cut in her head, and she explains that she went to go talk to Wax the night before, and well, turns out he's got some skills. Wax helped Drew with different kinds of weapons to defend herself in fights, but soon the sun began to rise, and he told her that next time he'll show her nunchucks. Drew says, no way, they're doing it this time. She used to have a toy pair when she was smaller. She was like a killing machine with them, just watch. She grabs the nunchucks and flicks them to one side, but the end ends up flinging back, hitting her in the head and knocking her out. She begins to wake up and she asks what happened, and Wax tells her that she gave herself a good beating. Once Wax cleaned her up, Drew says that her brother has a motorcycle helmet that she can borrow. But in the current time, Drew drops Kevin off at home, and once she's alone with Tana, she says that she told him how she got her injuries, so is Tana gonna tell her how she got the bruise on her arm? Tana shies away, stating that she forgot to give her dad an important message, so it's her fault. But Drew says not to make excuses for him. She's going to be staying with her tonight because, Drew needs an assistant for what she's trying to do. Tana tells her sure, but can they drop her off at home first so she can get a few things? She'll be over after that. Once Drew gets home, she finds Wax working in the garage and she asks, since he's helping her learn how to defend herself, would it be possible if he could help her friend as well? After making Wax promise to actually keep a secret this time, Drew explains Tana's situation. Wax asks if she wants him to go talk to her father, but she tells him to hold off on that for now. Before long, Tana shows up stating that she ordered some pizza. Drew begins to drag Tana away, telling her that she's got some work to do. Once they get inside of Drew's room, she begins to make the last preparations to summon a demon, but they're missing one last piece, a dead animal. Both girls remain silent as they look around looking at Drew's pets, and Drew says no way they're killing any of her pets. So Tana says that she has another idea. How about they use the pepperoni from the pizza? It's meat that came from a dead animal, right? The girls begin to pull off pieces of the pepperoni and they lay them in the middle of their circle and they begin to start their summoning. But then Drew's dog Bandit runs in, eating up the pepperoni. Drew chases him off, but then Bandit bites down on one of the candles and begins to run off with it. Bandit runs into the next room where Drew's sister is trying to make out with her boyfriend, and moments later Drew runs back into her room telling her dad that it wasn't her. Once Drew gets inside and shuts the door, Drew's sister shouts, "I'm going to kill you, Drew!" And Drew says that she just assumed that it was her fault. And Tana asks, "Wouldn't you?" And Drew says, "Yeah, I guess." So with that plan now being a bust, Drew decides that it's time to move on to her fourth plan, gamma radiation. The next morning, Drew has breakfast with Kevin and his family, and Drew asks Kevin when the next rocket is going to blast off into space. Kevin's father, David, tells her actually they're going to be sending up a rocket containing live animals on Thursday. And Kevin mentions that Drew is very big into the space programs and astronauts, and David suggests giving them an insider's tour. So Drew tells him Wednesday would actually be great. David says it's settled and he'll get directions for her. But Drew tells him, "You work in the engineering complex, right? I already know how to get there." Later that night, Drew calls Tana over to tell her that she needs to sneak out. She's got something important to tell her. After she hangs up, Drew heads back out, wakes up Wax, and once Tana gets there, Drew explains that she's going to be going on a trip soon, so there's a few things that she needs to get done before she leaves. She needs them to go to the store and get these items, no questions asked, and when they get back, she'll answer all of their questions. Tana and Wax walk off, and Drew sneaks into Wax's tent and gets a knife and heads over to Tana's home. Drew sneaks in and Mr. Brown asks where Tana is, and Drew says that she sent her away, but right now, she wants to talk to him. Tana is her best friend, and she knows when things are wrong. She knows when Tana gets bruises and where they come from. Because of it, her whole demeanor has changed. So, Drew has taken it upon herself to investigate the things that Tana won't tell her, and she captured them on a hidden camera. Mr. Brown tells her that that's illegal, but Drew tells him, "Sit back down. You're going to make it worse, so let me finish." Drew goes on stating that during her investigation, she also notices that things have not been easy for him with his relationship with his wife and losing his job. However, she would rather not put her best friend's friend's father in jail, so she doesn't want him to cause Tana any more stress. So what she wants Tana's father to understand is that she has these videos and information and will go to the police unless he stops. No more hurting her friend. Mr. Brown begins to sulk, stating that he's ashamed of himself and he's ashamed of the fact that it took her to come here and tell him that. He extends his arm, telling her that he swears he'll never let it happen again. What Drew doesn't see, though, is Tana and Wax are outside the window watching. As Drew heads back home, she finds Tana and Wax already back, and Tana hugs Drew and walks off. Drew asks what was that about, and Wax tells her, "Get used to it, hero." The next morning, Drew tells everyone goodbye and tells them that she loves them as she gets ready for school and heads off. And later after school, Drew wakes up as Kevin gets them to NASA. And once inside, Kevin asks if she's going to tell him what she's up to. She says that she's going to have to ask in advance to keep an open mind about it. And Kevin then says he's not going to like it, is he? And she tells him probably not. The two meet up with Kevin's dad, David, and he walks him through the facility, telling them about the different programs that they have here. But once it's all over, Kevin tells Drew to come out with it. What are you planning? Drew tells him not yet. If she tells him about it now and things go wrong, he'll get in big trouble. Right now, what she needs him to do is drive her van back home and then use this blow-up doll and a wig in the van to make it look like she left with him. If he can do that, she'll owe him a big favor, and he can ask her for anything. Since Kevin's kind of got a crush on her, he goes along with it. And as he leaves, Drew sneaks into the bathroom vents and waits. Once it hits 3 a.m., Drew sneaks back out to the compound where they're keeping the payload that's about to head off into space. And once the coast is clear, she sneaks in to find the test animals going to space in their cages, and she frees one of the chimpanzees. After rebalancing the weight to equal that of a chimpanzee, she sets herself up in the empty cage. This might be the dumbest thing she's ever done, but hitching a ride into space to get a cosmic ray bath and hang out with astronauts before going to jail, how cool can that be? The next morning, Tana and Kevin get the emails about Drew's plan, and Kevin sits on his roof to watch the rocket, thinking about how his dad is going to kill him. As the rocket begins to blast off into space, Drew sits up in her cage thinking about how she needs to stay focused right now. Don't think about the fact that the ride just made her pee her pants. Drew soon begins to feel drowsy from the ride and figures that it might be best to go to sleep before the nausea can take over. And after a few hours, the rocket begins to approach its final destination, and the astronauts on the space station open up the hatch to bring in the animals and suddenly stop. The female astronaut asks, "Did somebody screw her up?" And one of the men says, "Yeah, big time." Drew pokes her head out, telling everyone, "Hello, her name is Drusilla Dragowski, and she's gonna be upfront and tell them that she's stowed away. So hopefully this won't mess up things too much for them." One of the astronauts pulls Drew out and begins to check her vitals because she's rather pale and has red bumps all over, but Drew tells her not to worry, it's not the plague, it's just fire ant bites that have shown up for some reason. After that's done, the female astronaut tells Drew that they need her to stay in this room off to the side for a bit. They need to discuss what they're going to do with her, and she can't be left alone to wander the space station. After a little time has passed, the other male astronaut lets Drew out, telling her that he's sorry that they had to lock her up, but they discussed it and decided that it would be best to contact NASA about the situation. So they're going on camera real soon. Drew starts to stumble around in the zero gravity, and the man tells her it's okay, she can hold onto his foot. They all make it to the communication room and they go live, and down in the NASA monitor room, the screen comes up and Drew says hi to everyone. David stands up asking, "What the hell? I'm gonna kill Kevin." The female astronaut, Dr. Borbrick, took Drew aside while the two other astronauts attempted to calm down NASA. Drew explains that she came up here to get superpowers from a cosmic ray, and Borbrick says that she doesn't understand. Drew tries to say superpowers, cosmic ray, kind of like how the Fantastic Four got their abilities, and Dr. Borbrick says that she's still confused. So Drew changed the subject and asked her about being a cosmonaut physician. She looked up the first doctor to make the space flight, and she asked this doctor what it was like meeting him. And Dr. Borbrick says that it was a real honor, but they didn't get to talk much. Time goes on, and Drew is strapped down, and she can't help but feel like something is off. Dr. Borbrick confirmed this feeling because the individual that she asked what it was like meeting kind of died in 1994. Commander Wells is actually from San Diego, yet he mentioned something about Los Angeles, and she mistakenly said that Major Duke Clayton came from a family of 12, when actually he came from a family with only 2 other sisters. The concern that she has about having all of these facts incorrect is that no one corrected her. Soon Commander Wells comes in telling Drew that it's time to sleep, and it's very important that she does not leave this room. They will be conducting some tests and can't have her bouncing off the walls. Once he leaves, Drew figures that it's probably best to figure out what they're doing, so she uses her phone and some tools on the camera to get the video feed of the next room. She can't get any sound, but she figures that's fine. Drew's phone then lights up with the camera feed, and she sees the 3 astronauts all getting ready and heading to the docking area where there's no ship. Duke opens up the hatch and the 3 of them begin to walk out there, but there's no way they could be walking out into space because they'd be sucked out into space. This requires some more investigating, so Drew leaves her room and heads over to the docking area where the 3 of them left and begins to walk out like they did. She can breathe. She feels a structure around her. Maybe it's invisible? The closer she gets, she starts to see something, and then she finds herself walking right into some kind of an alien ship. Dr. Bobrick calls out behind her, stating that curiosity killed the cat, right? Well, this place is what you call our ship, the last place you'll ever see. Dr. Bobrick begins to transform into an alien creature and grabs Drew by the neck. Drew begins to wake up, and she finds herself strapped to a table while the alien Dr. Bobrick tells her that it's time to wake up. She has questions for her. The doctor says that because of Drew's discovery, they must depart earlier than expected. So why exactly is she here? Who is she, and how does she work with NASA? How was she going to make contact with them? Drew says that they didn't have anything to do with any of this. They can be civil and talk this through. With their cloaking capabilities, they could just be a very welcoming addition to Earth. Bobrick yells silence, and one of the other aliens tells her that they're running out of time. Neutralize and eject the girl. A light begins to shine on Drew's face, and she tells them to wait. She came up here alone, and then a needle begins to pop out going towards her eye. Drew begins to scream out in pain, and Bobrick says that it seems that there is a chemical in her body that is causing a reaction to their compound. Her vitals seem extremely agitated, administering a sedative now. Drew begins to scream out again, but soon she slowly stops and passes out. The aliens begin to leave, and Drew begins to think that she feels weird. Soon the fire ant bites on her face begin to fade, and the aliens discuss how they need to hurry. They have enough information for a successful invasion. They need to go and prepare for destruction. Drew overhears that conversation and thinks about how she has to get herself out of here. She pulls at the wrist, and she begins to rip through the restraints holding her kind of easily. She then looks out the window and sees the crew walking back to the space station, back in their human forms, giving her a chance to look around. The monitors on the alien ship show key locations and landmarks, and all of the information for prepping an alien invasion. She's the only one who knows that they're going to be invading. Back on Earth, NASA sent word of Drew's situation to her parents, and them alone with Wax headed over to NASA. While checking in, Drew's parents explain that Wax is a family friend and relation, and Wax explains that his real name is David Michael Cook, and he's a friend of the family. The man stops and says, "You're David Wax Cook? My apologies for detaining you, sir. Go ahead and escort the guests to the main control room." Drew's mother says that they really jumped when they found out who he was, and she remembers him stating that he was a soldier once. What did he do to earn such respect? Wax says that he did what every other man and woman did when they joined up. He followed orders, just he was uniquely skilled at his job. Once inside, David, Kevin's father, explains what has happened and that they're going to be getting a video feed from the space station soon. Communication starts to come in, and Duke says that it seems like there's nothing but static on the other end. Through the interruptions, Duke says that they hit something and is causing interference, and one of the workers states that a satellite is going to be passing by in 20 minutes. They can get a video feed from that to view what's going on up at the space station. David tells her to make it happen, and then everyone waits. Back in the alien ship, Drew starts to wonder and soon finds the original astronauts in test tubes, but they look dead. The further she looks, she eventually finds Duke, but in his test tube, she discovers that they were dissecting him. Drew soon finds her way to the control room of the ship, and while looking at the controls, Dr. Bobrick looks out the window and spots Drew on their ship. Drew starts to grab the controls to do something, but ends up shaking the ship, causing the bridge to break. Duke and the commander run back while Dr. Bobrick continues running towards their ship. Visual finally shows up back on Earth, and everyone watches as an alien ship rams into the space station. And back up in space, while Drew continues to play with the controls, Dr. Bobrick appears and throws Drew against a wall. The doctor gains control of the ship and tells her that Earth will see the space station as having an accident and everyone will burn with it, including you. Drew tells her not without a fight, and she readies herself to battle against an alien. But the doctor grabs her by the throat and tells her that it doesn't matter. They are not equal to humans. They are 7 times smarter and superior to everyone in every way. Drew begins to punch the doctor, knocking her down, and then begins to kick her. And once knocked out, she goes back to the controls. She begins to think that there really isn't any other option here, so she pushes the space station into orbit so that it can fall and burn. While the ships begin to descend to Earth, Drew takes out a picture of her family, stating she's gonna miss the life that she had. She's gonna miss the people that she loved. After falling towards Earth, the ships crash down, causing a massive explosion. And as the smoke begins to clear, Drew opens her eyes. She stands up, realizing somehow she's alive. And that is the conclusion to the Superzero miniseries. Now, this is a great conclusion to the story because it appears that Drew has actually gotten superpowers. How cool is that? I mean, the story would be totally different if they continued it, so I really like it ending right here. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. It was one of my favorite books of 2016, and Aftershock Comics is putting out some incredible stuff, so you need to check that stuff out. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Comicstorian and Instagram, and I'll see you next time right here.